alone. You got what you want. No, me dear, you shall not pass. I'll raise me boot and kick your ass.
Thanks for listening to Film Strip. All content used or discussed in this podcast are the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504c2, Title 17.
There was an old man of Madras whose balls were made of fine brass. So in stormy weather, they both hang together and sparks blow out of
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Brian.
And we're back to review Leprechaun 3, starring Warwick Davis, John Gattens, Lee Armstrong, John DeMetta, and Caroline Williams. Made for direct-to-video and released in 1995 on a budget of $1.2 million. I don't have any idea how much money this thing made. Did it ever make any money? I would highly doubt it. But, $1.2 million got spent on it. It went straight to video. And we told you guys last time that Leprechaun 2 was the last one to hit the big screen. I'm sure in some foreign country they threw this up on the silver screen. But, Brian, is it really that time of year again?
It is. We're approaching old St. Patty's Day, which only brings out the leprechaun in all of us, right?
I hope not.
Yeah. No. We are torturing ourselves every Halloween and every St. Patty's Day until we're done with these films, I guess you can call them, known as the Leprechaun series. This will be the third one. One more to go, Jay. I don't think we're going to go back to the hood.
Yeah.
So we'll skip those two. But one more to go after this. We can do it. We do it for you.
Yes, the listeners. We take this one for you. You've responded so well to the first two Leprechauns that Brian and I, feel the need to finish out at least the main four of the series. And it's also because the discs we bought contained all four films. So
that might have had a little bit to do with it. Might have had a little bit, but no, we read the reviews, and believe it or not, Jay, this one that we're about to review right now gets the most praise of all the Leprechauns. But I gotta say, the most intriguing of the Leprechauns has to be the one that's next, Leprechaun in Space.
Oh, well, I can't wait. Can we just skip this one and do that one now? Because that one sounds way more awesome than this.
Oh. Well, Jay, before we get into the awesomeness that is Leprechaun 3, why don't you go ahead and give us a plot summary for this guy?
I will do my best. So, we're back, and the Leprechaun is coming into Vegas, Sin City this time, the third feature, and a Las Vegas pawnbroker buys a statue of the Leprechaun from a hobo with one arm, one leg, and an eye patch. I'm not even making that up. It's the first 30 seconds. But he makes a mistake of not listening to the strange man and takes off the takes off the gold medallion hanging around the statue's neck. Of course, it turns out that it's no statue after all, and taking away the charm necklace brings the leprechaun back to life. And the mean-spirited little man torments the pawnbroker by biting off a toe and part of his ear and some horrible limericks. And then later he kills him and sets out to find a missing piece of gold that fell out of his pot earlier. But before he can find it, a young guy named Scott arrives at the shop to find the pawnbroker dead on the floor, and he takes that one gold shilling. While the coin brings a lot of good luck to Scott, things change when he discovers he has a murderous leprechaun on his trail. In one altercation, the leprechaun's blood mixes with Scott, causing Scott to begin transforming into a leprechaun himself. Oh, man. Despite all of this, the coin hops from one person to the next, and wishes are granted to Mitch, the Vegas casino owner, Loretta, the hangar owner, way past her prime at the casino, and the great Fazio, the casino magician. Leprechaun dispatches with those three pretty quickly and turns his attention to Scott. Scott's doing everything he can to stop Leprechaun from doing whatever he wants to do before he himself becomes a leprechaun. And during a showdown at a magic act, Scott is able to use a flamethrower to destroy the leprechaun and his pot of gold. Instantly, he's transformed back into himself, and Tammy, the beautiful magician's assistant, skip off into the daytime, tossing the one more remaining shilling into the streets of Las Vegas. And I guess that's about as good as we can do of a plot plot summary. We left out a lot of things we can get to here, Brian, but I can sum it up in one sentence. Leprechaun goes to Las Vegas, and something happens.
Many things happen, and I got to give him credit. After the disaster that was Leprechaun 2, because I got to say, Leprechaun 1 may not be the best movie in the world, but you can have fun with it. Leprechaun 2 was pure hell and torture.
Leprechaun 1 looks like Citizen Kane compared to this. This is horror. I mean, the series. I've watched a lot of horror series in my day. Okay, we've established that on many of the shows that we do here at Continuous Play. And I have never seen one fall this far off the cliff between parts 1 and 2 or parts 1 and 3 as this one has. I mean, it is amazing. But I will agree with you. 2 was dreadful, so they had nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to the director of this one, because instead of trying to make a terrible horror film like they did in Leprechaun 2, he just went with it and made it more of a comedy thing with a little bit of gore in it, and used it for what it is. I mean, people know that the Leprechaun as a horror film just ain't gonna cut it. And what people remember, unfortunately, for most of these movies are the retarded one-liners that he uses. So why not throw a bunch more in, right?
Well, I mean, there's a billion of those in this thing, and it's like that's all he does is say those little one-liners and does goofy little tricks. And then, it's the whole, I don't know, the thing about this series that gets me, Brian, is that the setup seems to change from film to film. Like, they don't have any real rules other than if the gold gets away from the leprechaun, he's going to be hell-bent on killing anybody that's got a piece of it, right? And he's done that in increasingly gross ways. But everything else seems to change. I mean, where's the 4-leaf clover magic? That ain't there no more.
That will return.
The green stuff that where's the green stuff that shoots out of his hands? The green force lightning.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we hadn't seen that. And I don't know. I mean, this whole bit about the gold now grants wishes. Now, you mentioned that in Leprechaun 1, when we were talking about, what do you know about leprechauns? You said you thought if you found a leprechaun at the end of a rainbow, then you got some wishes from the gold. They run with that in this one, and that's pretty much the whole setup, is that this one coin grants a wish to anyone, and the deal is you can't wish harm on the leprechaun, but you can do anything else that you want. So Scott gets this unbelievable run of luck. The casino owner gets to, almost make it with Tammy, and Loretta gets a plastic surgery, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And Fazio becomes a great magician, but he's still working the same lounge.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
So yes, but that's the whole setup this time. And I mean, I don't know. I will say it's better than the hoisted upon relationship that we saw last time with our characters. But the way Scott and Tammy meet is equally ridiculous.
It is. Basically, he almost runs into her on the sidewalk, and
You're thinking of Leaving Las Vegas, which is a much better film than Leprechaun 3, and starring a much better blonde actress, Elizabeth Shue, so, who has worked again. So, no, her car's broken down, and he shows up to help. Yeah, she's driving the VW Bug, and they have that terrible dialogue, and he opens up the front of, the old Bug cars, the engine was in the back. He's like, someone stole your engine. And already, 2 minutes into this, I'm like, oh man, we're in for a long ride.
Even before that, Jay, the whole scene where the guy comes in, like you mentioned in the plot summary, where he's missing like a leg, he's got an arm off and all this stuff, and he sells the pawn keeper this leprechaun statue for a whopping $20.
Who in the world is this guy?
Exactly. How did he come in?
This is what
how did he get it, number one? And number two, obviously he learned his lesson, because the leprechaun apparently he wanted the medallion, took the medallion off, and the leprechaun wreaked a hell of a lot of havoc on him before he got it on him again. Because holy crap.
Yeah. See, I'm glad you read that too, because at first I was like, "Who the heck is Long John Silver here with the leprechaun?" And then after the way he attacks the pawnbroker, I was like, "Aha! Old Stumpy there lost a few limbs before he got the chain around the guy's neck."
He had a few rounds with the leprechaun, yeah. Yeah.
And I guess since we've already said we're probably not going to review him, this gold chain and statue winds up in one of the hood leprechauns later on, so they go back to it. But yeah, I want to tell you though, that was awesome. I was like, well, this is a freak movie. I loved it. I mean, at that point, I was like, okay, if they're going to be goofy, then I'm fine with it. Because I'm with you. I was going to get real mad if they tried to be scary again. And there's no way they can do that. The leprechaun's out of the bag at this point. You got to just be goofy. And that opening was awesome. And it's just great. And you knew when he took the gold chain off that the little stone thing, which is not even in proportional size to Warwick Davis, was going to turn into it.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. But the best part is that, of course, Leprechaun doesn't do anything. He scares the crap out of the pawn keeper and then starts running away with his gold. And of course, what happens? He drops a medallion. What else would happen? And of course, what happens then? The pawn shopkeeper finds it, and now he wants to keep it. And then the leprechaun comes back for it. And I gotta say, Jay, this pawn shopkeeper lasted far too long in this movie. That just went on.
He lasted a long time.
They kept interweaving back and forth to it, and it was just like, really just kill the son of a bitch and get it over with.
Well, you know why he lived? Because he had that rad computer program. Now look, you're the technology guru of the continuous play crew here. What in the heck was that?
That was an 8-bit program, pre-Nintendo days, man. I mean, this was awesome. This is you're talking Commodore, probably 64 era software.
Dude, this is 1995. We got the Super NES.
And you got Windows 95. This guy was apparently not running that in this movie. Too much money to get that, apparently.
What? But how much did they have to spend to program that thing? That's what I want to know. That looks hilarious because it was like everything you'd want to know about a leprechaun. It was the way to do exposition because there were no characters capable of delivering dialogue. So the thing would tell you, if you let a leprechaun get your gold, you get wishes, and then that would happen. And the only way to beat him is to do this, and then to do this. And you light the gold on fire, you light the leprechaun on fire. And they drop all this stuff. And that's when I realized, I was like, hey, I better write down all of that because I bet every bit of that happens. And doggone it,
I'm going to guess they found this piece of crap somewhere and we're just like, dude, we can totally use this in our movie. I don't think that they paid someone to program that, really. No.
I would hope not. I mean, if they did, good luck to the guy who got that, that gig, because that was pretty sweet. But, really, what a weird setup, though. I'm with you. This thing starts so strange, and it's so jumpy because you have Scott trying to pick up Tammy, who he gives her a ride, and he's on his way to college. That's all we know, going through Las Vegas. So go figure. And because you don't just go through Las Vegas, you got to kind of be going there. I mean, it's not on the way to anything except itself. So anyway, that point aside, they're kind of having this little back and forth in the car, and you realize she's a magician's assistant. So she works at one of the local gigs, and that's when I was like, oh, we're going to get a magic show too. How great. Yeah, and did that turn out to disappoint?
Oh, it was just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. First, she lets him drive her to her place of work, and then allows him to come in with her. What the hell? They just met.
Yeah. Well, no.
He's underage.
Yeah, she's like, no. Yeah, no, she's like, you shouldn't be here, but come on anyway.
Just don't get into any trouble. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Yeah, and of course the bright lights of the casino draw him into cashing his college money.
Who the hell walks around with a check for $23,000 sitting in your pocket? A cashier's check.
An idiot. The same kind of person that would pick up a blonde on the strip in Vegas, I guess. I don't know. Again, I was watching this going, none of this makes any sense. You can't, if you apply logic to this, you're dying. And I had to just go with the fact that clearly he's going to lose all of his dough at the roulette wheel. And that's where we meet Loretta, Caroline Williams, who's Basically, she looks like somebody that probably at one time was a stripper, but is no longer.
Man,
really in shape
did you see how
job.
they made her look? Like, they made it look like her boobs are down to her butt, sagging. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, they really. I mean, it was terrible, terrible effects. All these clothes they've got her in, and this big hair. And I mean, I had to remind myself this was the 90s, so that was the thing. But she's rigging the roulette wheel because. And explain this to me. How would that even work?
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Is the marble magnet? Because the magnet would
it may be magnet, but how do you choose which one to let it fall on? Yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself. And I'm sure there's some kind of mechanism like that actually exists, but I couldn't figure that out either. I'm just sitting there going, how in the hell is she making it so it doesn't? I mean, you hit the magnet and it just goes somewhere, right? How do you know which number it is? You can't read that. Yeah. It's going pretty quick.
Exactly. I mean, it's goofy, but the whole point is that so Scott can lose all of his dough, and she tells him to go to the pawn shop across the street, and immediately you're like, well, we know which one he's going to, so he can pawn his gold watch or whatever, and that's where he gets involved in this whole madness, because he picks up the coin, and he's like, I want a winning streak, and the next thing you know, he's loaded. He's got dough, he's high rolling, and you know, I'll say for a stupid movies convention, I was okay. I was going with it. I mean, I'm much more forgiving this time around again because from the get-go, they've set this up that this is just going to be hijinks, y'all. It's just going to be laughs. But the thing I'm noticing is I'm having more fun in the movie when the Leprechaun's not there because what's going on while Scott's winning, Brian? The Leprechaun meets Elvis impersonators. Yes. He makes some poo appear on somebody's hand, and he's doing all kinds of horrible
and here's
stuff.
The thing.
And I hate
Here's the thing. I know we're in Las Vegas, right? And things are a little bit different there. But really, not a single person notices this little green leprechaun running around the streets. Nobody? Not a single person stops and looks at him like that's kind of odd.
It was ridiculous. I mean, it really... I don't even know... I don't even know where to go with that because what they've done is they took something out of Honeymoon in Vegas, which is another Nicolas Cage Vegas movie from earlier in the 90s, and the whole bit about the Elvis impersonators and that the Leprechaun is just as weird as every other weirdo running around Las Vegas. I mean, how did Pegleg get up and down the street without somebody noticing him? You know, I mean, we never see him again. That's what I wanted. I wanted the hobo to come back at the end, and I didn't even get that. You know, so that I don't know. This movie seems like the first third of it, or really the first half of it, was just thrown together so that they could get to the last half, which is much more intriguing. Yeah. So, but it feels like the first 40 minutes of this are just going nowhere, and it's all over the place. And I hated all those little gags with the Leprechaun. I hated that. I mean, at least in the first one, you know, when they had him running around in the little mini car and all that stuff, that was kind of fun and was sort of neat. And we were amazed at how fast he could move. But I mean, this was as bad as turning the two lawnmower blades into a nice rack for something.
Yeah, it was terrible. The whole Elvis thing. Really, you couldn't have found a better Elvis impersonator at least to do that. And how many Elvis impersonators are out there doing the fat Elvis? Is it a lot? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was an odd choice. Just the fat Elvis. I can't get somebody that looks. I mean, I've seen a couple of Elvis impersonators. Okay, and I'll be honest with you, the two I saw are fantastic. Yeah. They don't do fat Elvis. They do jumpsuit Elvis, but they don't do fat Elvis. And they, you know, that was horrible. But again, they probably couldn't get anybody that was any good because they're not spending money on this. You know, there's a little bit of money getting spent on effects, and it looks like they have 3 sets that are clearly not Las Vegas. Probably Toronto or Vancouver or somewhere like that. And then they've got the magic show, Brian, that they've got to pay for. The Great Fazio.
My favorite part of the magic show is when they're doing it, nobody's really paying attention, or they're all like, what the crap is this? You see the two in the back making out. Who the hell makes out at a magic show? It just seemed kind of out of place there. But
losers in Las Vegas, I guess. I don't know. I think the point was that they were more interested in each other.
Understandably so, yes. But let's talk about a couple things, Jay. Let's get into the fun part of this film, because there actually is some fun part of this film. But the two thugs that meet up with that meet up with Mitch, who's the owner, trying to collect their money. How hilarious are those two? You got the one guy who acts all tough, right? With his big muscle, who's a big wuss, basically. And what I really loved about these guys was the leader. He really tried to portray himself as this tough guy who he could kick the crap out of you, but he doesn't want to leave it to his thug, right? Did you get that out of him? Yeah.
I did, and
Yes.
I thought those two guys were hilarious. They were the linchpin of the whole story. And their odd, very awkward conversation at the elevator is actually where the movie turns. It's where it gets really good after that point. And because I remember when I got up to that, I said, "What? Why are we even focusing on these guys? Why are they in more than one scene?" And I realized they were just there for comic relief. But I thought they were funny. I liked the fact that they were supposed to be these thugs, but they were
the best, because the best was the main thug, and I can't remember what their names were in this, but when Leprechaun is killing them, and he's beating the tar out of that guy, and the guy is talking trash to him the whole time he's getting his ass kicked. It was awesome. One of the lines was he called him a munchkin and told him to ask him what Judy Garland was really like. As he's getting killed, he's just talking crap to him the whole time. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Well, which was awesome. And the Leprechaun is taking him out with like his little cane this time. Which I was like, man, he went from like just doing magic on people and biting their toes off to I'm just going to beat you with a stick. And I was okay with it. I thought it was good. It's funny to watch a little person wail on a big person. And one of these guys is probably like 6'7", and Warwick Davis is chopping him down. And it's so funny to see that again was part of what kept me going in this, because unlike the last movie where the middle, you didn't care about the damn go-kart race and all that other stuff that was going on, this was actually funny. And it was fun to watch.
They had a lot of good parts in here. We talked about all the wishes that come true. We talked about Scott's wish, which was to basically get some good luck going, and he starts winning a ton of money. And I can't remember what he actually ended up with for money, but it was quite a bit where they had the guys come out and tell him to take a break, go up to the biggest room in the hotel, and that's yours for the night, come back later, hoping that he'll lose his luck, right? Well, then the coin switches spots, and it goes to Mitch, who gets it from Loretta, and makes a wish that he says he could get any girl he wants, and Loretta says, "No, you can't." He goes, "I bet I can." And he makes a wish that he could get Tammy, right? And of course, then what the hell is this? She turns into freaking Marilyn Monroe all of a sudden and starts hitting on Mitch. What is that?
Oh. A bad Marilyn Monroe. Well, we already had the bad Elvis impersonation. Then we had the really bad Marilyn Monroe impersonation. It's that whole Mr. President, that baby talk stuff. She was horrible. And look, we got to say this because I dropped it earlier, but Leah Armstrong, the actress,
this movie made her quit.
After this, she did one other. Yeah, this was it. She was done, and I would argue she quit halfway into it, probably after having to do this scene, because she has to come all over to this guy, and she has to do this really weird, elongated scene of a striptease, which was incredibly awkward, and then she snaps out of it because the coin changes hands again, because Loretta comes back and gets it back. But that whole bit, that was weird. I would have rather had more of the two guys getting beat up than Tammy and Mitch almost getting it on in the elevator and almost getting it.
It was very strange, but it just made zero sense for her to all of a sudden turn a 180 and become a ditzy blonde all of a sudden, because she's been portrayed as kind of more of a smart blonde for the majority of the film, and now she's a ditzy blonde because she's coming on to the boss. It was just kind of out of place.
Yeah. It was really weird. It was very strange, but she's under the influence of the magic, Brian. So that's what we're supposed to believe. But that ends horribly. But now we got to talk about Mitch's death, because he starts watching like cheap cable porn. Okay, and then the naked woman crawls out of the TV and starts making out with him. And the first thing I'm thinking is, why are you still in the room? And then I remember The Ring had not come out yet, so we weren't freaked out by girls crawling out of the television yet. But that would have been a little weird. But behind him, while he's getting it on with this woman, is the Leprechaun doing like infomercials as a bad televangelist. You know, your sins are going to get you and all that. And I'm blown away that Mitch can't hold concentration on the naked.
Well, now he's only watching because he keeps mentioning his name, and he's like, "Did he just say my name? Did he just say my name?" Yeah, just bizarre. And then the naked woman turns out to be a robotic demon. Oh,
yeah, that made no sense at all. Yeah, she's trying to attack him and all, and he winds up getting electrocuted. You know, which is really strange. I thought, man, we've gone a long way from just you know poking somebody's eye out in the police car. I mean, again, this movie has jumped so many sharks that it's not even aware anymore how bad it's getting. That was one of the weirdest deaths in the whole thing. I felt strange about that because we know the leprechaun can protrude illusions, right?
Exactly.
But how did the illusion become a robot?
It's not like he had a robot
crawl out of the TV. It doesn't make any sense.
At least before, when he made illusions happen, they were objects you would believe were actually there. The lawnmower in the shed, right? Makes sense. But just a robot out of nowhere, unless this guy's really funky and into some kinky shit, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a robot just sitting in the corner.
Yeah. Well, we needed to set that up like he needed a mannequin of a hot woman or something.
Right.
It's all right, I'm with you, baby. And then she comes to life. Like, that would have been funny. You know, the riff on the Mannequin movie from the 80s, you know, with Kim Cattrall. That would have been funny. And then, like, she stabs him or something. But that's not what happens. It's that weird robot thing. And all I am doing is having bad flashbacks to when they made a robot out of Buffy and one of the characters started having sex with it. You know, and that's to come. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, that's exactly what crossed my mind was how awful that was. And then this is even more awful.
Yeah. Now, before all this happened, Leprechaun is obviously looking for his gold coin, and he's figured out that it's somewhere in the casino. First target is Scott. He goes after Scott. And Scott doesn't have it anymore because Loretta has stolen it from him. And they get into a little fight where they both get cut, and Leprechaun bleeds onto Scott. And apparently that means that he's going to become part leprechaun now because he's got some blood inside his blood mixed. What the hell?
How? Yeah, where did that come from?
And it's...
I mean, really weird. I mean, he got the leprechaun bites him in that process, so it's like he swapped venom with him.
Well, he starts bleeding too, and that's what actually gets all over his cuts.
Yeah, and it's really weird. It's like that green gooey blood turns him into a leprechaun.
Slowly but surely.
We've seen this convention. We've seen this convention before, right? I mean, you've seen this happen a million times. It's you get mixed with something and you're slowly becoming the thing you don't want to become, and it's a race against time. And this is what scriptwriters call the clock. You put the thing in the plot that is the countdown. In other words, we've got to get something resolved before this day ends or whatever the time period is that Scott becomes a leprechaun, because he doesn't want to be a leprechaun. So my question is, will he become like automatically shorter? He should have gotten progressively smaller as he leprechauned out, because all that happens is he gets like some weird ears and some fur. He looks kind of like the transitional Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, exactly. He looks like he's turning into a werewolf instead of a leprechaun. Definitely agree with you on that. He gets the wrinkly face thing going on there. But the best part is he breaks out into limerick at random freaking times. Really?
Oh, and the worst accent.
Oh,
ever.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's pretty bad.
It's
and of course, what is the first thing he does after he starts becoming part leprechaun? He goes to the restaurant and orders every kind of potato they have. Really?
Because apparently leprechauns' favorite food is potatoes per the computer program.
Oh my God!
So now we have to pay that off. I mean, ugh.
It was bad.
It's just bad, and he's just eating all this, and then it dawns on him, hey, something's wrong with me. Why am I eating all the potatoes? And I'm like, man, your carb diet, bro, is just through the roof now. You need to go get your heart examined. And it was just dumb. I hated that. I thought that was really lame.
Yep.
But now, of course, all of this is going down, and Tammy finally runs back into Scott and says, I need your help. And they're able to run back in they see Mitch's body now. And that's when Scott starts to realize, wait a minute, I'm turning into the Leprechaun, and Tammy takes him to the hospital. Now, this is what is bad. You talk about bad special effects. I mean, I've seen better on the old, 1960s Twilight Zone than this. This was horrible.
Not only that, Jay, I've seen slot machines in gas stations, but really in a hospital? Do they have slot machines in Vegas in a hospital too?
I would hope not. I mean,
I would hope not as well. I mean, come on.
There's got to be some law against that.
There's a limit.
In Las Vegas.
Yes. Anyway. No, I agree. This is just, this whole, the special effects in this and the gore parts of this movie are absolutely terrible. There's nothing really good about them.
Yeah, I mean, they're ripping Scott's clothes off of him to examine him, and clearly it's just his head sticking through the bed or whatever, and they've got the fake body there that's convulsing and doing all kinds of exorcist stuff. And it was just so lame. And of course, what happens is Tammy wanders off into the empty hospital. How the heck did this hospital get so empty so fast? She turned the corner and it's like nobody's there. I've been in hospitals. I have friends that work in them. There's not one part of them that's not busy or there's not well lit and there's people around. That is ridiculous. But of course, that's so the Leprechaun can corner her in the morgue. And that's the whole gimmick there.
Of course. Now, we do have to mention, too, Jay, that before all this, too, we had Loretta with the coin. And what does she wish for? She's got as we mentioned before, the boobs down to her waist.
She wants the body of a 20-year-old.
She's established that she thinks that she's still beautiful enough to be the act for Fazio, his girl in the act, instead of Tammy. And he always keeps telling her, no, you're disgusting, da, da, da. So she wishes to become beautiful. And what do they do to her? They chop off all her hair. And I think she looks worse.
They took off her wig, and they had her with the short hair, and then they give her this, low cut. They took off all the prosthetics that the actress was wearing, and they let her just be herself. And she's a decent-looking woman, She's built okay. And she's got her dress split way down and real short skirt and high heels and tons of hoe makeup on, and I mean she's totally dolled out, right? But then the Leprechaun shows up and he's going to make a few improvements to the magical plastic surgery, and he turns her into like a bloated duck. It looks like
she looked like Howard the Duck at one point in this whole thing. It was just so bad. So she just keeps getting bigger and bigger. What did it start with? I think it started with the boobs. Then it went to the lips and the butt. And, just terrible.
I want to tell you what they ripped this off of, because they just keep blowing her up, but she can't get through the door, and she finally explodes, which is really grotesque, right?
Yes.
I knew immediately where this was coming from. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. There's the good-looking mean girl in that. Basically, Freddy feeds her so much that she explodes. That's the whole big. She won't ever eat. Yeah. She's worried about her figure, and that's where I'm like, they totally janked this from that, because if I'm not mistaken, Nightmare 5 came out in 1989, so it had been out for a while, but it had been big on home video and stuff. That was like a big scene because it caused a lot of controversy because it got cut, and then when they put it on video, you got to see the uncut version, and it was a big deal. It was still one of those taboo things, and so they went for it here, and I'm sure it ticked off the people from Nightmare 5 who had to cut their scene 6 years earlier, and then friggin' Leprechaun gets to keep theirs. But whatever, we went a long way in 6 years, but the ratings apparently. But it's just really gross. But they've got to get rid of her, right? You got to dispatch with her because everybody else is getting killed, and so now you're ready to see Fazio get killed, and that's who you know is next. And what does Fazio want? He wants to be a great magician, but like I said before, he's still in the same crappy lounge, but he's got a crowd that actually pays attention. How does that make him David Copperfield?
I know. You would think that if he became the greatest magician, which is what he wished for, he could find a gig at a bigger place with a lot more people there. But he's still working the casino that he was at. He's a big deal, and he's trying to do a magic trick. And what I thought was hilarious is when the Leprechaun just shows up in the middle of his act, and he's so taken aback that he just goes with it like that's all part of the gig.
Yeah, exactly. Like they had this little magic off in the thing, and I thought, this is so bad. I mean, it's so bad, and the whole crowd, like the crowd at the show is sitting there going, huh? And I think that's what I was saying too. I said, why did the leprechaun just kill him? Like, he never plays with his food this much. This is a little beyond where he needs to be at this point. And I love how he sets him up, because he gets him in his big trick is he's going to saw somebody in half, which is the oldest, lamest illusion in the world, but that's his big show, so whatever. So he's going to do that, but the leprechaun decides, no, I'll do it. I'll saw you in half, and he pulls out a freaking chainsaw.
Oh, yeah. And proceeds to cut him.
Oh, but the funny thing is, Fazio winds up with the gold coin one more time, and he wishes he was somewhere else, but the leprechaun lets him know, hi, it's one wish per ownership. Which I thought, well, that's nice that you introduced that now, an hour.
Well, no, they did mention that it's for every piece of gold that you have of a leprechaun, so you get a wish.
Oh, okay. See, I thought it would just continue, but that's a good point. I didn't realize they had thrown that in there. But anyway, Fazio is no more because he gets chopped in half in a really grotesque. This is where all the money went, all the effects.
Yeah.
Because there's blood splattering everywhere and guts, and people are running out of the theater, of course. And I love how for 10 minutes the authorities don't ever show up.
Right.
People are running out of the casino going, this guy just got chopped in half, and there's not a single cop in the place.
Oh, but that's okay because Scott and Tammy are there to save the day.
Yeah, and I love how they saved the day, because the other part of Fazio's trick is he's going to light the box on fire while he's sawing someone in half, because apparently that is magic.
Yes.
And he has a full-fledged Vietnam-era flamethrower hanging out there. And here's what kills me, okay? Because the whole end of this is that Scott is fighting with himself about being a leprechaun, and Leprechaun's trying to play on that with him, right? And Scott is trying to figure out what to do, and it's Tammy that says, burn the gold, because his power's in the gold, and that's what incinerates him. I wanted the necklace to come back and somebody to throw it around the little guy. I mean, whatever happened to that thing? It got spit out in the pawn shop and you never saw it again. That ending seems so ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that after he dispatches with the somehow burns up all the gold with a flamethrower, number one, and dispatches with the leprechaun, he instantly, immediately, all of a sudden, all the leprechaun effects, which have been taking hours to transform him, are gone, and he's back to normal. That made zero sense.
Oh, and it's in that bad jump cut too, where he bends down ugh, and then the next shot he's fine. I'm like, oh, that was horrible. It was so cheap. But that kills me though. The ending of this bugs me. This whole incinerate the gold and it incinerates him. That doesn't make any dang sense, Brian.
Well, not only that.
I mean,
do you know how hard it is to burn gold? To melt it?
Oh, yeah, you have to get it up to several thousand degrees, and you can't do it.
No.
It doesn't have enough gas to do it. And plus, it's in a black cauldron, which is meant to hold.
I do have to.
It would just make it hot.
I do have to admit, though, Jay, it's nice to actually see the leprechaun have a pot of gold for once instead of a bag or.
Oh, but did you notice how only one piece would ever move on the pot of gold? It was the piece that kept flying off because it was plastic.
Oh yeah,
it was bad. It looked like your kid's Halloween costume.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Pot of gold. But you're right. At least they gave him a pot of gold. But that's how the leprechaun burns up, and he just turns into he floats prostrate in the air, on fire, and then falls to the stage floor and sort of melts in the floor.
Yeah,
and that's it. And I'm like, no shoe shining jokes. No last limerick.
We did get one joke about the shoes at the beginning of the show when he mentioned how nice the shoes were we actually got two of them. We mentioned how nice the shoes were of the pawn shopkeeper, and then of course Elvis mentions that how he likes
the blue suede.
How he likes the leprechaun shoes and wonders if they come in blue suede. So they didn't leave the shoe fetish out though entirely.
Well, they needed to do it in the resolve. That's what I'm saying. What am I picking apart? What am I picking apart? I mean, this is 90 minutes long, and it's about 45 minutes too long.
Yeah.
At this point, anyway. So, I don't know, man. I just I feel weird about it.
It is, but the worst part of the whole thing, Jay, is the absolute end when the Tammy all of a sudden is in love with Scott, who has been a leprechaun and trying to kill her at times during this movie. But anyway, that's okay. They're in love.
that they met less than 12 hours
Yes,
ago.
exactly. They just met. They're in love. They decide to go off happily together. And what do? They flip the remaining coin in the air. And that tells you one thing. Leprechaun will be back because they didn't destroy all of his gold.
It's the same ending as last time. They did that at the very end of the last one, remember? Those two kids flipped that off the stairs or whatever and then walked off into the sunset or sunlight together, which was ridiculous then, and it's just as ridiculous now. They couldn't come up with a better ending?
Apparently not. Apparently this is they decided after Leprechaun 2 that was a good way to go to end it, and maybe that's how they give it an out for the Leprechaun to return. It's because his gold's still there. Somehow he rejuvenates himself and gets better again. I don't know.
Yes. But as we've already said, the next one's in space. I can't wait to hear how they explain it.
It'll be good. It'll be good, I'm sure.
Yeah, it should be. Well, but before we get to that one, Brian, we're at the point of the podcast where we give our final recommendations and popcorn rating for the film. So what are yours for Leprechaun?
Well, Jay, last time for Leprechaun 2, I gotta say, there was absolutely zero redeeming quality in Leprechaun 2. The only part that had any kind of inkling of entertainment value was Mort. Other than that, it was just a pile of rubbish. And I believe we gave that a burnt up popcorn, leave it in the bag type thing. Well, if we gave that the burnt up popcorn, then this one gets the 3 kernels of popcorn that actually didn't burn, and you can get them out because there's some entertainment in this, but it still sucks.
I couldn't say it better, man. Look, this is one of those things that it will seem like it's really good because it's so much better than the last one, but it's still not any good. It's still bad. This is still horrid. And again, it's 40 minutes too long. And I didn't think there was a film on the planet, Brian, that could make me long and pine for the genius that was Mark Jones' original creation of Leprechaun. But I would take Ozzy and the not Kevin Bacon guy rubbing legs and Jennifer Aniston. I'd take all of that again twice before this. This movie is terrible. It's beyond bad. And it's still a small popcorn. Are there a few laughs? Yes. Do not buy this or rent it. You go to YouTube and say Leprechaun 3 best moments and you'll get all 5 seconds of what you need out of this. There's nothing. It's just still bad. And, once again, we've gone down the path, and one can only wonder is if in the 4th installment, will we finally hit gold with Leprechaun?
I wouldn't count on it.
Because I don't know. It's in space, and I understand there's lightsabers involved. And Christian Slater's in it. It's already giving me hope that this might have a chance.
You see that they're moving up. They went from Jennifer Aniston, young there, not really a star, to no name. Now they're getting Christian Slater in there, and of course in the hood we got Ice-T. So I don't know what.
Well, yeah, but we're not going to the hood, all right? We've already said that. Look, folks, if you want us to do Leprechaun in the hood, we got to talk. That's got to be some negotiations of that. Because I bought the one disc. It's got 4 films on it. As far as I'm concerned, none of these are canonical anyway. They don't fit together at all.
And the hood is even worse because it's in the 70s. So it's way back in the past.
So it predates the original Leprechaun in North Dakota. I can't believe this. Oh my! Well, it's been fun again talking this with you, even though the movie's terrible, Brian. It's always fun to go through these things.
Yeah, we'll be back in October for Leprechaun 4. Don't you worry about that. We will hit Leprechaun in space. After that, we're done. But we will be back in October with Leprechaun 4.
And I want to tell folks, too, we got some other real fun special things planned for October. I'm not going to say anything more about it yet, but I've got some films in mind I think are going to really be some cool stuff for us to do. And I mean not cool and like doing the most awful thing we can find away, actually something that may have some substance. So we're going to come back to that. Brian, we've also got one coming out here soon. It's almost WrestleMania time.
Ready to Rumble is going to be our next wrestling-related film for the WrestleMania coming up in April. So next week, we're going to drop Ready to Rumble on you. And that is a fun podcast, folks. You're going to enjoy that one. WCW, if you're ever a WCW fan, this is a film that'll bring back a lot of good memories from the WCW era and a lot of painful memories as well.
Well, I just want to say this for everyone who thought our No Holds Barred podcast was funny, and there are a lot of you who did and have commented as such. This one ranks right up there with it. And if I can say that as someone who participated in both podcasts, they were really fun to watch. They were really fun to record, and they've been fun to sort of edit and re-listen to as we put them together. So you will have a good time with this one, just like you did. And it's a long one too. It's breaking in. It may be one of the longest podcasts we've ever done. So that one's coming in too. So lots of fun stuff coming up. We've got some other surprises planned for the summer. We'll get a sessions or two in there too. Nick and Anna will be on with us again. So hang in there with us. You can also check out our Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast, The Art of Slaying, over at our sister site, theartofslaying.com. We've got 3 seasons full of archives there for you, and we are in the midst of the 4th season of releases right now. So lots of fun stuff associated with Buffy, or if you're a movie fan too, we've got a ton of archives there. Check us out. Leave us a review on iTunes. Drop us a line in our guest book. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know what you think. And hey, throw ideas at us. You never know. We might take one and run with it. So until next time, for Brian, I'm Jay. Thanks for tuning in to Filmstrip.
Let me go, you son of a bitch! Now, that's no way to speak about me, but lesser things.
Thanks for listening to Filmstrip. Visit our website, continuousplaypodcast.com, for more reviews and episodes. All content used or discussed in this podcast are the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17.